When we visited the Wolfgangsee lake a few weeks ago near Salzburg, we stumbled upon an awe-inspiring cliff that towers about 200 meters high, plunging straight into the water. After consulting the guidebook, we discovered it offered a mix of multi-pitches, some challenging and others relatively straightforward. The hot days of August didn't provide the ideal climbing conditions, especially since the cliff faced south. We patiently waited for a cooler day, but it never happened.
Vamos lá, Marion. 6 horas da manhã.
As our trip neared its end, George managed to convince me that an early morning start could make the climb manageable. I accepted the challenge, and we seized our final opportunity. The catch was, it turned out to be a very hot and sunny day, and things didn't really go as planned. We set our alarms a tad earlier than usual, aiming to hit the trailhead by 7 a.m. Everything seemed to be going according to plan so far.
Where's the track, Marion? Bush bashing again?
15 minutes in, we found ourselves bush bashing off the main path.
Who doesn't love a bush bash?
The best and quickest way to get to the climb would be by boat, a mere 10 minutes. However, we opted for a walk, discovering the trail was not really obvious for first-timers.
Getting there, Marion. We're finding our own way.
During this detour, I accidentally lost my prescription sunglasses. We managed to get back on track, but it was already 8:20 a.m. It wasn't until we reached the end of the trail that I realized my sunglasses were missing. A quick search proved futile, costing us an additional 15 minutes. Finally reaching the uphill point at 8:45 a.m., it was pretty nice to see a metal plate marking its location.
On prépare le rappel, premier de 5 rappels en tout, 4. Il est 9h du matin et le lac est très calme.
George began descending at 9 a.m., a possibly late start, but we pressed on. Once down, there was no turning back. The scenery and morning air creating a breathtaking atmosphere.
That's where we're gonna start climbing. Fit in the water. Okay. Put the rope here. No, Mario! Wow. This is the multi-pitch for today. We got lost on the approach as usual. And we're starting a little bit late. The sun's gonna be hard.
By the time I reached the bottom, we encountered issues pulling the ropes down, snagged on trees or rock. George decided to climb using the other end of the rope.
Let's go!
It was 10:30 a.m., and we had spent nearly 1.5 hours navigating the 4 rappels, recovering the ropes, and preparing for the climb. Under the scorching sun, we knew we had to ascend quickly. There was no other way out. Locals on stand-up paddles warned us about the challenging last 2 pitches, with artificial holes that spun and a higher difficulty than the grade suggested. Nothing but encouraging news. George reached the tangled ropes, but left them for me to recover while seconding. Otherwise, they could fall straight into the water. It worked perfectly, and he rapidly climbed the first pitch, deciding to combine it with the second pitch for efficiency. Some plastic holes started to pop up, but they were not really needed. We managed to avoid them for the majority of the climb. The suggested grades are probably based on using the gym holes, because every pitch felt much harder than what the guide said. Halfway up the second pitch, George starts splitting the quick draws apart to make sure he will have enough to complete the pitch.
Okay. I have to skip some boats if I want to make it to the top.
Now it was my turn to speed through. To protect my skin from the sun, I put on my long-sleeve hoodie despite the heat. Ropes recovered, I completed the combined pitches around 11:15 a.m. Without delay, George tackled the third pitch, a traverse.
Let's go, pitch number 3, Marion. Top demais.
Considering the lack of shade, he decided to stop by this very small tree. Not a lot of shade, but better than nothing. I joined him, we took a breath and drank some water, and he prepared for the rest of the third pitch, combining it with the fourth. It was already noon. This traverse started smoothly, with enjoyable moves, but as the heat intensified, even the cameras struggled to stay on. About 10 meters from the top of this section, there was this cool feature, with some possible jamming techniques to climb without using the plastic holds. George was really trying not to use them, but as it was getting harder and the sun was really intense, he decided to use the holds to make it faster. I reached the top of the fifth pitch at 1:45 p.m. Regret set in. Before starting the last two pitches, we drank the last of our water. We were officially out of water, the worst scenario for such a climb. Fortunately, the summit was within reach. I was trying to breathe and be mentally strong, because I would have stopped if I had listened to my dehydrated body. George was strong-minded and willing to reach the top as soon as possible. The sixth pitch began with an array of gym holds, which were very welcomed, considering the urge to get out of the sun. The holds were somewhat worn and spinning, making it hard to trust them, but climbing without them would have been way harder, if possible. George got to the top of the sixth pitch and decided to link it again with the last one. Rope drag was a bit annoying at the end, but it was manageable. I struggled a lot with the final bit. The walls were hot to the touch. I was so thirsty and my head was boiling, but I knew that the end was near. So I gave it the last energy and we finally escaped the wall around 2:45 p.m. With no water left, we still had to take the trail back down to the car, carrying the equipment. We were exhausted.
Esse vídeo aqui é só pra gente lembrar quando a gente vê de novo.
Nunca mais.
Muito foda.
Não escalar no sul. No verão. Num dia de canicule. C'est la canicule!
Just look at our faces before and after. That juice was the most delicious drink we've ever had. Thanks everyone for watching and see you on the next one. À la prochaine!